I was eager enough. I was in a certain way vulnerable enough to be completely open to what was happening there. I was also massively scared, and sometimes scared means vulnerability to change.
Psychedelics are said to shift our fixed perspectives, giving us a bird's eye view of our own lives and helping to remove the lenses of cultural, religious, and social conditioning through which we are taught to see the world. They are being used therapeutically and somatically to treat depression, addiction, PTSD, and trauma, and many are using them to explore the ineffable, those unknown realms of consciousness and beyond. Join us in Adventures of the Psyche as we learn how psychedelics have transformed people's lives. Welcome, friends, to Adventures of the Psyche. Today we are joined by Gabriel Amezcua, who tells how his search for shamanism, wisdom, and power led him on a most unusual adventure of heartbreak and self-love in Central America. Gabriel is a Mexican activist specializing in anthropology of mental health and has founded several harm reduction, drug policy reform, and psychedelic care organizations in Mexico and Germany. He currently works as a consultant on psychedelic medicine for the Open Society Foundation, OSF, and for the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, MAPS.
You know, when we are young, we are looking for significance. We're looking for something that makes us different, something that gives us, I don't know, the answers that we're looking for, especially in the spiritual path. And I was reading Carlos Castaneda and Jodorowsky like crazy. And I was really eager to understand a quest for power, for love, for understanding. I was looking for a spiritual teacher. So I was a hippie with dreadlocks, traveling a lot around the world. And at some point I was traveling in Central America with my partner, Sofia. And at some point we splitted and I stayed in Nicaragua while she went to Panama. We decided to see each other back in Nicaragua, but she never came back. She got lost and I was desperate. And this is how the story of my quest for power in a certain way started. I was looking for her a lot. I went back to Mexico without knowing what to do. A friend of mine told me, like, why should we go to take some mushrooms in the mountains in Tlanisco. And since I was looking for answers, I was pretty desperate. And we went to the mountains and we ate these beautiful mushrooms, the rumbes. And these mushrooms, it was one of the most beautiful and intense trips in my life. And these mushrooms told me that I was gonna learn what I wanted to learn. It was pretty clear, the message. I never saw something like that. Even I told my friend, like, I feel that I'm seeing the future. When the mushroom trip finished, the next day in the morning, I received a phone call. It was the mother of Sophia, and she was telling me, like, we found her. We know now where she is. She's in an island of Panama. We sent a private detective. She is apparently with some sorcerers or shamans, and one of them is her partner. I was pretty shocked. But that same day, as if the stars were aligning, I received an email from her. And in that email, she was telling me, come here. Everything that we were looking for, it's in this place. So my ideas started blowing, like, yes, shamans, knowledge, teachers, masters, power. This is what I was looking for. And I decided to quit my cinema school, my film school, and go for a quest, for a big quest. It took me 2 weeks to get there. When I arrived, it was in the Isla de Bastimentos, a very tiny jungle island in the archipelago of Bocas del Toro. And when I get down the boat, there's this little town, a black town. People are really sweet. And I was asking people, and some people told me like, yeah, do you mean like the guys who live up there in the jungle? Because I was looking for the shamans. And I was like, yes. And they showed me the path, and I started walking through the jungle, and suddenly in the middle of the jungle, I see her. She was walking towards the town. Apparently she was going to buy something, and she looked beautiful. She looked mighty. I never saw her like that. And I asked her like, hey, I'm here, but she seemed confused. It was as if she was not looking at me. We have been dating for 4 years. And I was a little bit confused of how she received me. And she told me, Gabo, I didn't know that you were actually going to come. And I am now with this shaman, and I'm going to have a child from him. I saw that in a dream. I was even more shocked. She took me to the shamans. It was 3 shamans. They called themselves the jaguar, the monkey, and the eagle. And she was dating the jaguar. He was the oldest. They were from the Kuna tribe. But they were working together and alone and apart from their tribes, from their people. They received me not in such a good way. I think because they knew what I was coming for. From there, it was for me very difficult. I was coming for a quest of understanding, for a psychedelic and a spiritual quest. And suddenly I arrived with these shamans who don't really want me there. They're living their lives, and they're learning from nature, and they are deeply in connection with nature. But I am not coming to learn from them. I am coming to be with my partner, and they knew it. The jaguar received me, and he told me that I was scared. That first night, we smoked something that after that, I knew that it was a combination of yopo with salvia. It was a very strong process. And the shaman told me, like, you are scared. You're full of fear. I can see your fear. And I told him, I think you're scared too, because you know what I'm coming for. And in that moment, something really crazy happened. Like, he took a knife and he stick his knife through his hand, shouting, I am not scared. And in that moment, I completely fainted. That's where the adventure begins in a certain way. It's a process in which I start understanding that they are in such a deep connection with nature that they are able to do certain types of things and alter the reality of what I am seeing. Sometimes they are able to alter time and space through how they sing, like time and space moves quicker. I remember walking to the beach with them, and it was a walk of like 5 hours, and they were singing, and for me it was 20 minutes. It was really interesting to see how they were able to do this through their connection with nature. But I was massively scared. At some point, I realized that I wanted to take Sofia back to Mexico. And I told her, please come with me. And when she was far away from the shaman, from the jaguar, she was able to remember more. And then I convinced her to not sleep with him for a night. I was so jealous. I saw them many nights being together already. And she told me, okay, I'm not going to sleep with him. So she slept apart. In the night, he comes to me and he looks at me in the eyes. The rain was pouring, there were lightnings, and he looks at me and I see his eyes transformed into the eyes of a cat. And he tells me, you're leaving tomorrow. And he goes back to her and they start making love in darkness. I get crazy, I stand up, I start running through the jungle, and rain is pouring on top of me. And I find just a space where I can sleep, and I cry. And when I wake up, I see the mountains and I see the sea. I'm on top of a mountain. And there's an eagle singing on top of me. And I am realizing in that moment that everything that I came to learn, I learned it. I learned about love to myself. I learned about the power that I have to change my own reality. And I learned that I don't need teachers, that I don't need guides, that I don't need shamans. I learned that I am my own teacher, my own shaman. That next day I leave and I start my quest back to Mexico. And after that, my life changed completely. Instead of looking for spiritual teachers, I was trying to teach myself. I started making yoga. I started working with the substances myself. I started learning by myself. And this completed me. At some point, she came back. We were not partners anymore, but we were very good friends. And it was a beautiful friendship that grew up in such a beautiful process of mutual understanding and spiritual learning all by ourselves.
Thank you, Gabriel, so much. Wow, what an adventure. I'm curious, what do you believe was happening? You say that the shamans had such a connection with nature that they were able to help you see things that weren't happening. What's your understanding of that?
In anthropology, there is a concept that is called symbolic efficacy. It means that you are able to alter the reality of someone through putting a massive amount of intention and connection with your own process. And if that person is open enough to perceive the reality that you are trying to project, then that person is able to project their own reality in your reality. This is mostly how sorcery works around the world. There are many texts that talk about this. Carlos Castaneda also has an explanation. He calls it the fix point, the fixation point, which is a point that is apparently behind our third eye. Apparently, with enough will of power, shamans and sorcerers are able to move the fixed point and alter our perception of reality and put their own visions and their own power into the fixed point, meaning that their reality enters through the entrance of our reality. So now I think I understand that something like this was happening. I was eager enough, I was in a certain way vulnerable enough to be completely open to what was happening there. I was also massively scared, and sometimes scared means vulnerability to change this point of entrance. But it's not only scare, it can be any very intense emotion that makes you vulnerable to an external process. I think something like this happened to me.
So it seems that this has created a sort of a crack in that idealistic pursuit of power and shamanism and all that lies beyond the veil. And yet you still went on and studied anthropology. And you tell me how it's morphed what you're searching for.
I think it has to do precisely with the fact that I see many people in that same state, like looking for answers, looking for a spiritual quest. And I think I realized at that point that shamans are not there to teach you what you want to learn. Sometimes they are there to teach you what you need to learn. And sometimes what you need to learn is not going to come, like from the Carlos Castaneda quest, in which the shaman is going to tell you, yeah, you are a Nahual and I'm going to teach you everything that I know. Sometimes the shamans are going to tell you that you need to learn by yourself and that you need to confront your fears and your attachments. I was attached to Sophia, and I was attached to my own idea of what a spiritual quest was, what a shaman was, what I was going to learn in the process. And what I learned was extremely, extremely painful. And sometimes we need to go through these painful processes and confront them, not victimize ourselves, but confront them and be like, yeah, this was necessary. This is a spiritual path, I guess.
Thank you so much for sharing, Gabriel.
Thank you for inviting me to share.